Good afternoon, folks. Wow, that's like a really nice conformist way of speaking. I feel like, it feels good. Um, I'm Samantak. You would have heard about it already. Today, I wanted to speak about a word that we use very often, but we don't really discuss about often. It's called the word weird. Yeah. Essentially, according to definitions today, in English, the Oxford English Dictionary and the Cambridge and the Merriam-Webster's of the world, you'll find the meaning of the weird is uncanny, unearthly, or even, colloquially speaking, very strange or bizarre. At no point does the word mean a good thing or a bad thing. It just means that. Weird is uncanny, it's unearthly, or it's just something different, it's something strange. Then why is it then when somebody says, this guy is weird, or this idea, it's really weird, this TEDx, it's really weird. When somebody says something like that, why do we always assume that it's a bad thing, that it has a negative connotation or an interpretation of sorts? That was essentially the premise for why I wanted to talk about weirdness. I've done this as a bit of a social experiment where whenever friends and people have asked me, so hey man, how do you describe yourself? Or what's the best thing about yourself? Or what's your strength? I say I'm weird. I mean, it is what it is. I can't help it. But it's a social experiment because every single time people reply by saying, hey, come on, say something seriously. Hey, come on, don't take yourself so hard. You are your own worst enemy. All that. People just give me all of that. But I'm not really trying to be self-deprecating, or neither am I trying to humble brag, which I do once in a while, but let's face it, we're humans. But I mean, in this case, it isn't the case. And I'm still waiting for that day when somebody comes and says, hey, that's great, I'm weird too. Nobody's been telling me that. It's been 3 years now. So I'm really glad I got to speak about it. So later on, if we meet in life, you know what to tell me when I tell you this. It's just a sort of a cheat code. Essentially, that's what I'm going to talk about today. How to be a good weird. There can be a good version of the weird too. Catherine Sanderson had this to say: monochrome contentment or a technicolor roller coaster. It's not much of a contest, is it? Essentially, this is what I'm going to talk about. What does weird mean today? What does it mean today? And how can we be a good type of a weird? What's a good type of a weird? And how? What are the 3 steps, very basic, generic steps of how to be a good weird? So let's get on that technicolor roller coaster. How to get on that roller coaster ride? Yeah? First up, the first step is the need to be weird. All of us might be thinking of various things in the day. We might be thinking about various ideas and various innovations and so on and so forth. Do this as a daily experiment, as a day in and day out experiment. In a single day, how many times have you thought weird, a good weird? How many times have you thought differently? How many times have your sentences started with the word, what if? And maybe as you go along with these days, just see, are these what if statements increasing in number, or are they decreasing? Because if they're decreasing, something's not right there. And that's what I'm talking about. Find that need. Where's that pressing need to think weird? In many cases, many of the speakers have come and spoken today, and the speakers are going to talk about it later today. Everybody's discovered that need, that primal desire, that primal drive, that sense of urgency to really want to think weird because they feel really passionately for something. I might be talking about poetry because that's where I come from. But a lot of people, they're in the space of technology, they're in the space of agriculture, climate change, politics, bureaucracy. People who really feel for it. They feel that need to think weird. And for example, I'm going to give you a very funny example that happened a few days back. C.P. Surendran, he's a really famous poet. He's one of the legends of the Indian English poetry scene in India. He's been around for a really long time. Trust me, he has. He doesn't look his age, but he has. And he'd come down to Bangalore. to read from his book, Available Light. Thing is, right before that talk, he said, hey, let's go grab a beer. I feel like a beer. I said, sure, let's go grab a beer. I mean, you're supposed to do what the big guys want to do, right? So I wanted to have a hot chocolate, really, but that's beyond the point. So we go there. We go to this pub, and while we're entering the pub, he meets this attendant at the entrance of the pub. And she asks him, because that's her job, she says, hi, sir, good afternoon. What's your name? Can I please have your name? Can I please write that down? He says, Shah Rukh Khan. And she's like, okay, sir, but could you please let me know your name? Name, not your favorite name. He says, Shah Rukh Khan. Write it down, Shah Rukh Khan. And because I felt really bad for her. And I must confess that I did think that he was being the bad weird. And this is so weird. This is not how you conduct yourself. Why is he cracking a practical joke with someone who's just doing her job? And I started climbing the stairs because I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. I'm like, no, I don't know him. I was just walking by. We just happened to be in the same space when we were walking. So essentially, and then soon after, he catches up with me, and that's when he tells me a simple sentence. Why can't I be called Shah Rukh Khan? I can be Shah Rukh Khan. Why do we always assume that a celebrity's name is unique because he's famous? Why can't somebody else have the same name as a celebrity? And suddenly all this bad connotation I had about this whole experience went down the drain. Literally went down the drain. I was like, wow, that's a beautiful observation. That's a very simple observation. I didn't even think of it like that. In a sense, he was carrying out what we may call a social experiment. And that is why he's one of the legends of today in the world of poetry. That might even become a poem for him. I'll be pretty happy. I can talk about it later, at a later date. I'll say, this poem, I was there. But essentially speaking, it really gave me an insight of the actual type of weird. And I learned a little bit more of how to become weird. I still am in the process of becoming, So this is something that I'm talking about. He knows that pressing need. He's been feeling it forever. And that's why what he is today. He is what he is today. Next step is the courage to stick to your weird. You might have thought weird, and that's what a lot of us generally do. We always think weird. Many of us do think weird. We think we're sleeping at bed, we're sleeping on our bed, we're watching Netflix, and like, hey, I think I'll start a company. Next day morning, oh God, my boss has dropped me 5 texts. I need to reach office fast. I'm dead, right? Or any other thing. So essentially, if you've thought weird, you need to have the courage to stick to your weird. Need to think is easy. Having the courage to stick to your weird, that's the real deal. That's the game changer. That's where we all fall apart. And I've fallen apart a multiple number of times. Because once you've thought weird and you put that weird out for everybody to see, the whole world will come against you like a tsunami. Entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs, so many amazing entrepreneurs out there will tell you so many amazing inspirational tales about this bit, about them having the courage to stick out against the tsunami of the world. Entrepreneurs, corporate world, small honchos fighting it out with the big honchos to push across their fresh ideas. In the art world, if you're doing something really different and you're a kid, your different is not really good unless you won an award. Prestigious award conferred by so-and-so. Just saying. So, essentially, you have to stick to the courage. You need to have that courage. From a personal example perspective, you would already know about Lead Poetry Bee. And Lead Poetry Bee was started in Bangalore around 5 years back with the sole purpose, with this sole observation that all of the poetry events that were happening across in the city at the time felt very usual, felt very normal, felt like same things happening day in and day out. We were having our poetry readings, we were having our book launches, our panel discussions. The same set of 20 people will come, out of which 15 of them would be dressed in finery, and they'll clap for each other. A mutual adoration society would be formed. They'll end up coming to every other event, and that's how life goes on, and that's fine. Of course, that's fine. You help each other out, that's not bad. But then, not much was happening. So we thought we'll create a new community of poets on a monthly basis, where anybody and everybody can come in and just talk about their poetry, read their poetry, a non-judgmental platform to help Newcomers come and just feel okay standing on stage here and looking out at a wide variety of people whom they have never seen before and reading something that's very dear and personal to them. Along with that, we wanted to make poetry not boring. We wanted to break that notion. It's not cool. It's not, you wouldn't tell your friend, right? Hey man, it's Saturday evening, let's go to the pub and read some poetry. You wouldn't do that. No, that doesn't happen generally. So we're talking about that. Can that happen someday? And for that, we've been trying, you know. And through my later project, The Sound of Poetry, and to let poetry be, we've tried various types of formats. We've fused poetry with music. We've fused poetry with theater. When poetry is happening, there's theater happening. People are performing those poems. You know, when poetry is happening, we've had blindfolded people doing visual, painting something on a canvas. A 1 hour long painting that's been happening while people have been coming and reading their poetry and going. We've had audiences being blindfolded. They've been given a piece of paper and a pen. And then they're told you have the remaining stimuli, the remaining things, the remaining senses to work with. And we play music. We read poems. We make them smell old socks. We make them smell liquor. We throw things at them slightly. We give them some food to eat, you know. They are basically blasted by senses. And with that, they have to figure out whichever sense clicks with them, whichever stimuli clicks with them, they write something about it on paper. You know, and that's what we're looking at. At the same time, another format is where we ask people to write down something that's very deep, a deep, secretive memory, or something they've experienced in life and have never really talked about it with people. And we say, hey, write that down on a piece of paper. It's a bit sadistic because it's a surprise, but it's a beautiful surprise in the sense that then we collect all these pieces of paper and we throw them up in the air. Now, whichever piece of paper is close to you, you pick it up. You open it. You see something written there. That's your writing prompt for the day. Suddenly, in your hand is a sentence which is a very big responsibility. It's someone's memory. It's something someone has experienced. And that's very close to that person. It's your duty now to respect it, justify it, and write something amazing about it. Can you do it? A writing prompt with a lot of responsibility and a lot of weight. So these are just some examples. There's many more I can keep on talking about, but this is some ways in which I have tried to stick to our type of weird, to have the courage to do it and see if it clicks or not. So we're still on it, we're still making it happen. And the third step and the final step in this is executing the weird ASAP. As you can see, it's not what it is on the slide. There's a disclaimer. We're not very nihilistic like that. We don't kill people. Executing the weird here simply means if you've had the need to think weird, if you've had the courage to stick to your weird, make it happen as soon as possible, because the more you wait, it's not going to happen. It's happened to me multiple times. That's what I'm saying. I mean, multiple times. And that's where, although I've had a day job for most of my life, you know, I wanted to make this happen. And I somehow made time for myself. I ensured I came back home, I got my stuff done, and I was out there again, trying to make things happen, putting out things in different pubs, in non-conventional spaces, like Gillies in Bangalore. Many of you would know about it. Or maybe in a Foxtrot in Koramangala, or even in the artsy spaces like Attagalata, a bookstore in Koramangala. So we've done it in all sorts of spaces, and we want to keep on executing it as many times, as much as possible. You know, you got to execute it as soon as possible, otherwise it's never going to happen. Another example. You see these two books here, if you can see these books. You'll see there's something different about them. They're all cloth-bound. The book covers are something that's become a trademark of this publishing house called Writers' Workshop. Now, why did I want to talk about Writers' Workshop today? It's because Writers' Workshop, what they've done is, they started in 1958, a person called Purushottam Lal. He said, I started the publishing house because there was no one around to publish me, so I published myself. You know, but beneath that jocular level lies the real truth. 1958, remember that year, right? There was nothing about, there was not a publishing infrastructure around at that time, let alone poetry publishing, you know? And he set up a poetry publishing house with some of his friends, and then they dissipated, they left, and then he became a one-man army. He took care of everything. And since 1958, Writers' Workshop has published thousands and thousands of poetry. Amazing, amazing people who've become famous, who've become legends, who've become names in their own right because of Writers' Workshop. Because that day, Purushottam Lal said, I want to do this. If he had said no, if he did not execute his weird, we would not have had such a great wealth of Indian poetry today with us. I'm just quickly going to read one little thing that's written in every Writers' Workshop book. Writers' Workshop books are published by P. Lal from 162 by 92 Lake Gardens, Calcutta 700045, India. Layout and lettering by P. Lal with a Sheffer calligraphy pen. Printed by Abhijit Nath in a Lake Gardens press. This is a limited edition, gold embossed, hand-stitched, hand-pasted, and hand-bound by Tulamia Mohiuddin with handloom sari cloth woven and designed in India to provide visual beauty and the intimate texture of book feel. Writers' Workshop bindings are not concealed behind ephemeral glossy jackets. Each Writers' Workshop publication is a handcrafted artifact. That's Writers' Workshop for you, in a small sense, and that's called execution. To finish off my talk today, I'd like you to revisit something. Google it up today. The word weird, when you go back to the origins of the word, it used to be spelled as W-Y-R-D, weird. And weird, back in ancient mythology, in Old English, it meant fate or destiny. By the time the Romans and Greeks and everybody came in, it came to be associated with the three sisters, or the three sisters who controlled fate. And essentially, the meaning of weird that has gone out of practice now, but was prevalent back then, is that weird meant destiny. Weird meant the power to choose your own destiny. Shakespeare is the culprit here. He used weird in the current context in Macbeth, and that's what we've been following all along. So once Shakespeare's not that great a guy, all the time. Yeah? And then just don't keep on being gullible about it. He's a great guy, sorry, don't quote me. But the point is, weird is not very weird. What I've been trying to say in my complete talk as of now is, how can we be W-Y-R-D, not the W-E-I-R-D? Can we do these 3 steps and eventually control our fate, control our destiny? Because that's what we're supposed to do out here. Otherwise, we're just simply wasting our time, aren't we? Therefore, just to leave you with a small thought, or a concluding statement, one might call it, how can you be weird? Change W-E-I-R-D to W-Y-R-D. That's all I have to say. Thank you. That's my time for today, guys. Thank you so much.